Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Cultural Modeling Program. My name is Leshe Kandeta to present the program to you this evening. We'll be looking at the official opening of Parliament by His Excellency the President, Mr. Rupiah Banda. Specifically, we'll focus on his message on economic affairs. But however, before we get to that, let's go to a recap of a program we had some time back which featured Dr. Anton Mwanawasa, the Executive Director of the Food Reserve Agency. Watch with me.
In the coming week, most millers will have signed their instruments with us to access their 100%.
In the coming week?
The process has actually started already. In the last week or so, several millers have come through. We have given them offer letters. They've signed instruments, and as you have seen in the media, several millers have gone ahead to reduce the prices. That is those millers who are actually benefiting from us. So we hope to see more millers coming through.
Let me get you clearly on that, Dr. Mwanawasa. You said the 100%, is this 100% of their requirements?
Yes.
For how long? For what period of
what
time?
we see in the market, and these are market dynamics that have been there for years, is that from about December to about March, that's when we have the highest demand and the highest market prices, because really there is no other alternative. There is no crop coming onto the market. And this, coupled with the global effects, has made the food not generally not affordable to our people. And the government has come in to support this transitional period, because by April we'll begin to get the new crop. The early maize is coming on board. In fact, by April, even some farmers begin to harvest, a few crops here and there, and generally you begin to see prices beginning to go down April through up to about October, November.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back. That was a message from Dr. Mwanawasa on measures being taken to bring down mini meal prices. As many of you may be witnesses, mini meal prices are indeed coming down, but we hope to see more millers bring down their prices of this very essential commodity. Right now, we go to the market outlook. We are looking at the exchange rate as provided to us by the Bank of Zambia on 16th January 2009. US dollar buying 5,000, selling 5020.00. Pound 7464.00, selling 7495.86. Euro 6633.00 and selling 6660.03. Rand 506.25 and selling 508.43. At this point, I have some information that I would like to share with you. This is information that we have in the MTF for 2009 to 2011. We have some projections on GDP, inflation, fiscal balances, borrowing and gross international reserves, indicating that for 2009, the real GDP is projected at 5%, 2010 5.5%, 2011 6%. Inflation, NDA inflation is projected for 2009 at 10%, 2010 at 9%, 2011 at 6%. The annual average for inflation will be at around 11.2% for 2009, 8% for 2010, and 7% for 2011. The overall fiscal balance as a percentage of GDP is projected at 2.2% in 2009, 1.2% in 2010, and 1.1% in 2011. Domestic borrowing, which is government borrowing from the domestic market, as a percentage of gross domestic product, is projected at 1.6% for this year, 1.2% for 2010, and 1% for 2011. You can see that as we move towards 2011 in this MTF period, government will reduce its borrowing from the domestic sector, thus freeing monies for you viewers to borrow and engage in productive activities. And gross international reserves are projected to grow from about 2.5 months of import cover in 2009 to 3 months of import cover in 2010, and sustaining that figure at 3 in 2011. At this point in time, it is my pleasure to request you to join me in listening to this very, very important message from His Excellency the President, Mr. Rupiah Bwezani Banda, when he was opening Parliament last week on Friday. We are specifically focusing on what he said concerning economic affairs. Watch with me.
Economic section, poverty reduction and economic empowerment. Mr. Speaker, let me start with an observation. Since 1991, each MMD administration has entered its first year faced with a crisis of one type or another. The first administration had to deal with severe food shortages, largely due to drought in 1991-1992 season. The second MMD administration suffered a sudden investment withdrawal by Anglo-American Corporation from Konkola copper mines, which threatened about 10,000 jobs in 2002. The start of this third administration is no different. My administration takes over at a time of severe global financial crisis. Nations rich and poor have been affected. In my inaugural speech address last November, I promised the people of Zambia that the main priority of my government will be to fight poverty. Despite the global recession, that priority remains. In fact, I am cautiously confident in our ability to fight poverty. Zambia has faced difficult times before. By working together, we have overcome past problems. Our resolve in the face of the present crisis should be no different. Zambia is a nation rich in natural and human resources. We have no reason to be poor. Our challenge is to harness these abundant resources and to deliver prosperity for all. So let us face this year united, working together and supporting each other, standing as one nation. Let the world see a Zambia of compassion and care, where no one is left behind. Let the world see a Zambia of determination and fortitude, standing shoulder to shoulder in solidarity, and we can do it. This last decade, we have made significant advances in building our nation. We have seen gross domestic product, GDP, growth rates averaging 5.1%, declining inflation rates to single digit, and decreasing interest rates. Microeconomic achievements include decreased government borrowing and increased private sector investment. We were on track with social and economic policies, delivering positive change for all. But as the world discovered, 2008 was a cruel year. Our achievements and our hard work of the previous decade suffered significant setbacks. Mr. Speaker, the global financial and economic crisis severely affected the copper and other metal market prices, causing world prices to fall by 60%. Further, the high cost of fertilizer and fuel had a negative impact on the economy and contributed significantly to the high inflation rate. Mr. Speaker, given the present economic situation by government, my government will continue to pursue prudent fiscal and monetary policies. To do otherwise would be folly and irresponsible. Our aim is to achieve the projected 5% growth domestic product. Key programs of the 5th National Development Framework, namely poverty reduction and wealth creation, will not only be safeguarded but enhanced through better monitoring and constant evaluation. The global credit crunch and the subsequent cost-saving measures have resulted in job losses, damaging both our economy and our society. Further concerns have been raised on the measures my government is undertaking to cushion the country from the effects of the crunch. Mr. Speaker, in response, government has devised intervention measures designed to mitigate the adverse impacts of the crisis. These measures include: 1. Engaging mining companies to prevent major job losses and encourage other investors to come. 2. Diversification of the economy through A. Enhanced resource allocation to irrigation. B. Provision of resources to the Citizens Economic Empowerment Fund. And C. Promotion of the development of the Lusaka multi-facility economic zones to generate employment and open more and develop more economic zones all over the country. D. Provision of adequate resources this year for the completion of Nansanga farm block to attract investment. And E. Provision of adequate resources for infrastructure development for Kasaba Bay and Livingstone areas to increase the number of tourist arrivals. 3. Encourage private sector participation in the development of power generation centers. And 4. Promote and expedite the exploration of petroleum in the country. In order to undertake these measures, government will reallocate resources from non-priority areas. These measures are intended to address the concerns of both employees and employers where the threat of factory and business closures looms. They are also intended to cushion the entire economy from the effects of the crunch. The government stands ready to work with the public and private partners, both domestic and foreign, to secure the future of the Zambian industries. However, let me sound this warning note. The global crisis must not be used as an excuse to lay off workers in a cynical attempt to cut costs and reduce overheads. I'm asked to repeat, and I will repeat, Mr. Speaker. However, let me sound this warning note. The global crisis must not be used as an excuse to lay off workers in a cynical attempt to cut costs and reduce overheads. Any job losses should only come as a last resort, after consultation with trade unions and after thorough analysis of all the options available. Any industrial restructuring should take into account the knock-on effects of laying off workers, which includes the loss of tax revenues, the subsequent requirement for increased government social support, the impact on local communities, and increased levels of poverty. I am therefore directing the Minister of Labor and Social Security to ensure that the Tripartite Labor Council is fully involved in any industrial restructuring which may lead to a reduction of output or of the labor force. Empowerment. Mr. Speaker, the global downturn, with its negative impact on jobs, commodity prices, and international trade, flies in the face of our efforts to create jobs, to boost prosperity, and to reduce poverty levels. The challenge, therefore, is to devise strategies that will minimize the negative impact of this world recession on our growing industrial and trading sectors. Adapt or die is an expression known to all businessmen. I urge business leaders and heads of companies from all sectors to adopt more innovative survival strategies aimed at achieving that competitive edge. Now, more than ever, is the time to review your business models, hunt out new markets, diversify your products, and seek partnerships. For its part, the government remains committed to reducing the cost of doing business in Zambia. In 2009, the government will introduce a new national science and technology policy. This House can expect a bill aimed at strengthening the coordination, promotion, and regulation of science and technology in the country. Mr. Speaker, the government will place greater emphasis on the development of micro, small, and medium enterprises as a source of employment and skills formation for our women, young people, and retirees. A draft policy aimed at realizing the potential and benefits of such businesses has been developed in consultation with key stakeholders. The Citizens Economic Empowerment Fund is poised to provide startup capital and initial support for new small-scale projects. Last year, I talked of hands up in place of hands out, and I believe the fund promotes exactly that idea. Harnessing the initiative and drive of the Zambian people will help us build a better future. Disbursements of funds will be continuously reviewed to ensure that the most worthy and credible ideas receive this funding. Mr. Speaker, while promoting domestic entrepreneurship is important, it is also vital that we encourage domestic and foreign investment through the multi-facility economic zones. Zones have been put in place in Lusaka South and near the airport, and Chambishi for both export and domestic-oriented industries. When completed, both facilities are expected to generate more than 10,000 jobs. The zones are a success in other countries, and it is government's intention to use them as an example for Zambia. This government is determined to deliver on its election promises, to create more jobs, creating more wealth, and giving hope to ever more Zambians. Mr. Speaker, I urge all Zambians to take advantage of these initiatives to start their own commercial and trade enterprises. Where possible, entering into partnership with foreign investors to improve access to knowledge, new skills, and international financing. Skills development. Mr. Speaker, these are indeed tough times, but relying too much on others or indulging in self-pity will not help. We must help ourselves. Developing the right skills is vital to economic empowerment. Education is the road out of poverty, and education is not just about learning to read or write, it is more. Our young are our future. Government is committed to the provision of requisite skills to make them productive members of their society. Government will review the technical education, vocational, and entrepreneurship training policy, TEVET, to improve the coordination and regulation of the sector. Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, agriculture will remain a priority sector. My administration's emphasis will continue to be on increased and sustainable food security at all levels. We want to see improved income generation, through increased cash crop productivity, livestock, and fisheries development. We must ensure food security. This will both counter the effects of the world food crisis and increase incomes. Mr. Speaker, during 2007 and 2008 farming season, we experienced livestock diseases and floods that ravaged most parts of the country, resulting in reduced crop yields. This led to increase in food prices. Whilst our farmers are resilient, the accessibility of agricultural inputs continues to be an area of great concern. Our farmers have complained of delays in both the distribution of farming inputs and the announcement of the floor prices. Concerns have been raised regarding the Food Reserve Agency, that it has not purchased maize in the outlying areas, concentrating instead on the district centers. My government understands these concerns and will therefore strengthen the operations of the agency immediately. I therefore direct honorable members to listen, and I will give them the answer. I therefore, that's the answer. I therefore direct the Food Reserve Agency to intensify their crop marketing system this year by ensuring that they concentrate in buying crops from the remotest parts of the country, as the private sector concentrates in the districts and urban areas. Mr. Speaker, the supply of fertilizer is key to our farming sector. The fertilizer support programs will continue to assist the small-scale farmers. However, the cyclical price irregularity of fertilizer affects all farmers, small and large. My government would like to see the price of fertilizer stabilize, thereby benefiting all farmers. Efforts will be made to achieve this in time for the 2009-2010 season. Procurement and countrywide distribution of fertilizer will now be done earlier than in the past. This will enable the country source cheap fertilizer. For many years, the Agricultural Extension Service has not performed to people's expectations, and this has led to low productivity by farmers despite government's efforts to subsidize fertilizer and seeds. I am therefore directing the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives to ensure that from 2009, the Extension Service begins to perform and all provinces will have production targets. Mr. Speaker, my government will support irrigated agriculture, especially among small-scale farmers who depend on rain-fed agriculture for their livelihood. These farmers are the worst hit in times of drought or floods, and the seasonal nature of their activities means that they will not have produce all the year round. In spite of such challenges, this year's irrigated maize crop will harvest some 100,000 tons. This is a valuable contribution to our nation's sustainability. My administration will therefore intensify this program in order to increase production by encouraging more farmers to come on board. I would like to see this figure doubled next year. Mr. Speaker, in order to increase agricultural production and productivity, there is urgent need for mechanizing the small-scale farming sector. Government is working on programs to bring in tractors and agricultural equipment to be used by small-scale farmers as communities. Processing of agricultural produce will be given priority so that our farmers can add value to their products. We should be exporting food which is processed in order to earn more money. There is still a need to improve Zambia's livestock and fisheries sectors. This will be a priority, so much so that the sector will have its own ministerial portfolio. The first task of the new minister will be to address the problems facing the livestock sector in the southern, western, and eastern provinces, and fisheries in the western, northwestern, Luapula, northern provinces, and all other areas of the country. Land. Mr. Speaker, fair and equal access to land is an ongoing issue which my government will continue to address. My government will this year expedite the process of identifying land for allocation to our people and to investors. But it is very important that land distribution is carried out in an efficient and transparent manner. To this end, the creation of customer service centers will be extended. The Ministry of Lands will be opening a center in each of the nation's 9 provinces. By doing this, we hope to make the system more efficient, cutting out central bureaucracy, and by providing better accountability at local levels. I am pleased to inform the House that in 2008, the process of surveying for land banks commenced. Guidelines on how to acquire land in these banks have been finalized. Our land is a valuable resource and provides for great potential. It is a potential we must realize wisely and utilize wisely, always remembering that we are investing for the future. Mr. Speaker, in the 2007, 23 councils benefited from the Land Development Fund. In 2008, only 3 additional councils benefited. In 2009, we will encourage the remaining councils to be proactive and apply for these funds so as to foster development in their areas. Tourism, Mr. Speaker. Another productive sector for our poverty reduction, employment, and wealth creation is tourism. The Cassava Bay Tourist Resort Development Project will help to open up northern and Luapula provinces under the Northern Tourism Circuit. This will provide job opportunities and for wealth creation through both private and public sector investment. Livingstone, the hub of our tourism industry, will also be given priority. All assistance will be given to ensuring that development in these areas is sensitive to local needs and to the environment. Mr. Speaker, in the past, the tourist sector proved to be resilient to external shocks. However, the current global economic downturn has forced people to evaluate how they spend their money. Expenditure on holidays and leisure time activities has fallen. To support our tourism sector, we will embark on an aggressive marketing campaign. We have much to offer. In these hard times, Zambia is a country that can offer value for money, friendly service, world-class scenery, and attractions. In addition, we are a safe country with no internal strife. In these troubled times, be they economic or geopolitical, Zambia offers herself as a haven of peace and tranquility. We should view 2009 as a year of opportunity, a year of creating a year of greeting new friends to our borders and for forging lasting relations. Welcome back should become our greeting. I appeal to our immigration officers, who are usually the first point of contact with our tourists, to truly represent Zambia's hospitality. Environment and natural resources, Mr. Speaker. Here in Africa, when the environment suffers, so do the people. The poor suffer disproportionately from the effects of climate change. Deforestation and stripped land exacerbates flooding and drought, which in turn makes survival harder. My government will implement the National Adaptation Plan of Action aimed at adapting and mitigating the impacts of climate change, particularly on small-scale farmers who are some of the hardest hit. In support, a national climate change response strategy will be prepared to coordinate all the various efforts aimed at addressing the impacts of climate change. By working together, we not only help the environment, but help each other. Mr. Speaker, the private sector has a role to play in contributing to environmental protection. Trading of carbon emissions with industrialized countries under the Clean Development Mechanism of the Kyoto Protocol is one such mechanism. The government will continue to help the private sector to employ cleaner production technologies in their production processes. It is a fact that our developing countries, balancing the needs of the people with the protection of the environment, is not easy. The Environmental Protection and Pollution Control Act will be reviewed to make it investor-friendly whilst protecting the integrity of the environment. Too many of our trees end up as illegal exports or as illegal charcoal. So this year, our forestry policy and related laws will be reviewed to improve the management of the country's forest resources. Water resources. Mr. Speaker, Zambia has abundant water resources and accounts for approximately 40% of all fresh water resources in the Southern African region. Nonetheless, it is a valuable resource, and in recognition of this, in 2008, my government launched the Integrated Water Resource Management and Water Efficiency Plan. The plan will guide and provide government with a strategy for developing the water sector in an integrated and sustainable manner without compromising availability for those neighbors with whom we share this valuable resource. Mines and minerals development. Mr. Speaker, the mining sector, the mainstay of our economy, has had to deal with a volatile end of 2008. In addition to the fall in copper prices, the sector had to deal with inadequate power supply, the drying up of international credit, so vital for investment due to the global financial crisis. That said, it is much credit to the sector that in 2008 we saw an increase in the mineral production. We are not alone. The global mining industry has suffered. Lower demand from countries like China and India have seen cutbacks and closures in many producing countries. Mr. Speaker, there are new hopes on the horizon. The House may wish to note that Zambia has promising sites for uranium mining. Due to safety, health, environmental, and security concerns, government has taken a cautious approach to the issuing of uranium mining rights. It is right that the government has adopted International Atomic Energy Agency guidelines on the exploration, mining, processing, storage, transportation, and trade in uranium. Mr. Speaker, last year, the Mines and Minerals Act 1995 was repealed and replaced by the Mines and Minerals Development Act 2008. The act is well-meaning, aimed at allowing all Zambians to benefit from the sector, while at the same time ensuring a conducive investment environment. This year, we intend to effect further amendments to the Mines and Minerals Development Act to encourage foreign direct investment. However, windfall taxes can only be levied on profits, and this year, profits will be very scarce indeed. We must ensure that we do not kill the goose that lays the golden egg. There is little point in taking in a few $1 million in tax if thousands of jobs are lost as a result. Government is currently engaged with the industry to make sure that a beneficial financial environment exists for both government and the investors. My government will do all it can to protect jobs and to safeguard the industry for the future. Mr. Speaker, where it has become necessary to suspend mining operations, government has instituted measures to protect infrastructure and to ensure that such mines are neither flooded nor vandalized so that they remain operable. However, as government reviews the situation in the mining industry, the welfare of all mine workers is the topmost priority of this government. In this regard, government is determined to ensure that mining companies meet their social and legal obligations should they choose to pull out or to disinvest. In addition, a special task force will report back to government on the needs and possible strategies available when closures are imminent. Energy. Mr. Speaker, for our country to achieve the Vision 2030, we will need to provide adequate energy to meet the country's needs. In 2008, government launched a new energy policy which aims at attracting new investors into the energy sector. Government also completed the Rural Electrification Master Plan, which will guide the development of rural electrification. The benefits of this are already being felt with the development of the privately owned Kabompo Gorge Power Station. In addition, government has engaged with various partners to ensure more supply. With the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank on the Kafua Gorge Lower Project, which will cost an estimated $1.5 billion, and with Tata of India on the Itesteshi Power Station and transmission line. Together, they will provide an additional 870 megawatts of much-needed power. Load shedding is still a problem and needs to be minimized urgently. In part, this will be achieved by upgrading the generators at Kafua Gorge and Kariba North Bank. I am sure the House will agree that load shedding has minimized in some areas as a result of the efforts of this government. Government will also look at ways of increasing the provision of energy derived from the sun. Sunshine is something we have in plenty. It would be folly to ignore its use. Both photovoltaic, producing electricity, and solar panels for hot water can be made readily available in both our urban and rural areas. Mr. Speaker, I will soon reconstitute the Petroleum Committee to spearhead the exploration for oil and gas in the country. If those natural resources exist, then we must export them. Later this year, the exploration tendering process will recommence. Mr. Speaker, In 2008, further surveys for oil and gas were conducted covering around Lakes Tanganyika, Mweru Wantipa, Bangweulu, and in the Zambezi and Kafue river basins. There have been positive results. Soil samples from these areas have been sent abroad for laboratory analysis, but those are for the future. My government is of course concerned for today. We do all we can to ensure that Zambians have a supply of fuel both stable in supply and in price. Crude oil prices have fallen from well over $100 a barrel to around 40. Both the individual and the industry will benefit from these falling prices. The MMD government has kept the promise to lower fuel prices. Infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, in an effort to make Zambia a regional economic hub, government will continue to improve infrastructure such as roads, railways, railway lines, airports, and canals to improve accessibility and reduce transport costs. Being landlocked, Zambia's economic competitiveness depends on an efficient transportation and communication system. We will be developing the North-South corridor as part of an air-to-trade initiative. The corridor involves construction of roads, rail, and border facilities stretching from Tanzania, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Zambia, to other Southern African countries. A donor pledging conference will take place in April in Zambia to mobilize the resources for this infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, road construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance countrywide remains a high priority for the sustainable economic development of the country. Earth-moving and engineering equipment, which has been distributed to all provinces, will facilitate the completion of ongoing projects. May I request honorable members of Parliament to ensure that this equipment is used for the intended purpose. The completion and commissioning of the Mwanawasa Bridge at Chembe has shortened the route from the Copper Belt and Luapula through to the Democratic Republic of the Congo and in the other direction to East Africa. Further, government, in collaboration with the neighboring Botswana, has commissioned a feasibility study for the construction of a bridge at the Kazungula border. The development of rail infrastructure provides an alternative and cheaper mode of transport to the already overburdened road infrastructure. Government, therefore, encourages investors from both local and foreign to partner in the construction of rail lines such as Chipata, Mpika, Nseluka, Mpulungu, Solwezi, Chingola, Solwezi, Lumwana, Benguela, Mulobezi to Namibia, and Kafue lines then. Mr. Speaker, the public-private partnership policy will give impetus to investors in the development of infrastructure. The partnership will address financial constraints in the implementation of capital projects in order to provide a legal framework to this policy. Government this year intends to table the public-private partnership bill. With regard to Tazara, the governments of Tanzania and Zambia are considering a number of policy options, including engaging a private equity partner to resuscitate the company. Another rail project which will facilitate regional trade is the Chipatun Qinji railway line, which is nearing completion. Rail has a vital role to play in a country the size of Zambia. It can deliver so much more, but investment is indeed high. It is the government's intention to conduct a review to see how the rail network can better serve the country. Social services. Mr. Speaker, my government is committed to achieving the Millennium Development Goals in the field of social services. Economic policies can provide the foundations, but to them we need to add good quality social services such as health and education. Health. Mr. Speaker, the health population is a prerequisite to good levels of national productivity. In my inaugural speech, I stressed the need for progress in health care. Life-threatening diseases like HIV and AIDS, malaria, cholera, and tuberculosis must be combated. The battle against such diseases is not for government alone, but also requires the efforts of everyone in the country. Mr. Speaker, in 2009, government will accelerate efforts to improve the health sector. The restructuring process for hospitals at all levels, including districts, will be completed, and the drug supply, management, and logistics will be strengthened at district levels. In an effort to improve the health infrastructure, government is currently constructing 15 of the 18 earmarked district hospitals. These will be completed in the rural areas by complemented in the rural areas by mobile clinics, which government is currently negotiating to procure from friendly countries. My government will promote health education. Many diseases can be avoided through adopting simple measures. People die needlessly through ignorance. This, of course, must stop. We must pay attention to the hygienic way of living. Prevention is better than cure. My administration will also introduce the social health insurance as one of the strategies to increase accessibility to health care services. This will complement the government policy of free medical services for targeted groups. The Zambia Health Workers Retention Scheme, which was a pilot program targeting doctors, now covers clinical officers, nurses, tutors, environmental health technicians, pharmacists, laboratory technicians, and midwives. The emphasis of this scheme will shift to the remote and hard-to-reach health facilities. Government will continue with its policy of increasing access and improving the quality of education at all levels, particularly for the rural areas. To support these measures, government has also embarked on increasing the number of school places, both at basic and high school levels. In this regard, government has constructed 1,527 classrooms at already existing schools, while provision has been made for another 2,500 classrooms at basic school level this year. In the continued effort to improve the quality of education, government in 2008 recruited 5,000 teachers who will be able to positively impact the pupil-teacher ratio. In 2009, another 5,000 teachers will be recruited. Mr. Speaker, at tertiary level, government transformed the National College for Management and Development Studies in Kabwe into the Mulungushi University. In 2009, the government will continue with the rehabilitation works at the various institutions of higher learning. This includes the converting of the dilapidated Mulakupikwa Police College in Chinsali into a teacher education college specializing in sciences. Progress has been made in upgrading of Nkrumah Teachers Training College and Copperbelt Secondary School Teacher Training College. I also wish to commend the operators of private colleges and universities who continue to supplement government efforts at increasing access at this higher level of education. I must thank especially the churches who have also contributed greatly to this sector through their efforts in education. These Zambian universities are fast becoming a regional learning hub by attracting students from surrounding countries such as Angola, Congo, and Malawi. To streamline the operations of these private institutions, government is in the process of finalizing guidelines through the establishment of the Higher Education Qualification Authority. Local government and housing. Mr. Speaker, my government recognizes that from an economic point of view, effective local government provides access to various developmental assets such as land as well as various social services to the people. It is clear, therefore, that Zambia's strategies for unlocking the country's productive resources for wealth creation necessarily depend on the ability to craft a new partnership between the central government and a viable local government. In this regard, my government will this year work towards adopting the Decentralization Implementation Plan, which forms the primary basis for financial and technical assistance to local government. In order to address issues of capacity in local government, my administration intends to introduce the Local Government Service Commission. This will be done through an amendment to the Local Government Act and the Service Commissions Act, which will be tabled in this House this year. The Service Commission will, among other things, improve the recruitment and welfare of local government staff. Mr. Speaker, further, the current tenure of mayors and council chairpersons has been a subject of intense debate in this House and outside. Government has carefully listened to the calls from various stakeholders for the extension of the term of office for the mayors and council chairpersons. In this regard, my administration will this year present to this August House the Local Government Amendment Bill, which will extend the tenure of office of these officers. Mr. Speaker, illegal settlements and unplanned urban settlements continue to be a source of concern for the government. The high rate of urbanization, which is currently at the rate of 3.5% per annum, as opposed to 3.1% population growth rate, poses a challenge in the face of inadequate capacity to plan, implement, and manage urban development. In order to address this problem, government intends to make legislative reforms to the relevant statutes. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to ease the mobility of chiefs, government bought 150 motor vehicles for chiefs under a loan scheme. This year, my government is committed to buy the remaining 136 motor vehicles for those gazetted chiefs who did not benefit from the first batch, so that all the 286 chiefs in the country are catered for.
Yes, indeed, the President has articulated himself very well in terms of what he intends to see, where we intend to go this year in terms of economic affairs, including social issues, education, and health issues. At this point in time, I wish to remind you that the national budget will be presented on 30th January 2009, and we are making arrangements to complete the final work related to this budget. And on that day, I can invite you to watch on ZNBC at starting sometime at 14 hours in the afternoon of 30th January, when the Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Stumbeko Mututwane, will be presenting the budget. Some of the information I gave you this evening, which is some projections for 2009 to 2011, the specific figures now on what government will have arrived at as final projections for this year will be given in with the budget presentation ceremony, together with other economic, macro, fiscal, and monetary policies. At this point in time, it is my pleasure to invite you to the end thoughts, and the end thoughts are being given by His Excellency the President. Thereafter, we'll have the Bible reading. Watch with me.
I wish to reiterate the promise I made to the nation during my inauguration speech on the 2nd of November last year, that I will be President for all Zambians. I invite all Zambians, regardless of their political leaning, ethnicity, race, or religious background, to unite behind our common agenda of defeating poverty, creating wealth for ourselves, and propelling Zambia forward towards prosperity. As a united country, we'll come through 2009 and be well prepared for 2010. We will not be able to solve all our problems this year, but I believe we can weather this global storm and we will emerge as a stronger nation. I see 2009 as a year of foundation building, and I look forward to reaping the rewards of our endeavors in the near future. In the abundant natural resources and human resources which God has blessed our country with, will provide us a base of which we may develop our nation with hope and pride. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure this august House, and through this House, the nation, that I, as President of this Republic, want to leave a legacy of my President. I therefore commit to work very hard and tirelessly to build that legacy, especially that my current tenure is only for 3 years. I expect my ministers, my deputy ministers, permanent secretaries, heads of commissions and government agencies, parastatal chiefs, chief executives, to perform no differently. I want each one of them to observe discipline and to put in an honest 8 hours plus work daily. I will not, Mr. Speaker, I will not hesitate to part ways with those not prepared to pull their weight in the crusade to move our country forward.
Those were end thoughts from the President, but to sum it up all, let's have a reading from the Bible. It is taken from United Bible Societies, the book of Sirach. And this evening, I'll invite my colleague, Mr. David Monga, to give us the reading.
Good evening, viewers. The Bible reading is taken from the book of Sirach, chapter 9, verse 17 and 18. Also, chapter 10, verse 1 to 5. The Bible reads, "Skilled workers are admired for the things they make, and leaders' wisdom is proved by their words. Someone who speak rashly and recklessly is feared and hated by everyone in town. A wise ruler will educate his people, and his government will be orderly. All officials and all the citizens will like their ruler. An educated king will reign his people, but a government will grow stronger if its rulers are wise. The Lord sees the government of the world and brings the right person to power at the right time. The success of a person is in the Lord's hand. The Lord is the source of honor given to any official. May the Lord add a blessing to his reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monga. Yes, indeed, viewers, President Banda is the leader now, and his message reflects his leadership, and we all have to support his efforts to develop this country so that we contribute to the creation of wealth for each one of us. Next week, we'll be looking at what government is doing to improve the welfare of people in rural areas. So specifically, we'll be focusing at the Rural Finance Program, and our guest will be Mr. Michael Mbulo, who is the director for the program, Rural Finance Program. Thank you very much for joining us, and good night.